it's Lara here. So we are now at the Summerley Museum of Scottish Industrial Life. So look at that. Let's explore. Here's the brochure. Local history fair.
Here is the map.
So here is the map.
Here, we came through here, remember? And we're here at the entrance to the main exhibition. But there's a tram line that goes all the way around. There's a tram. And there's an ironwork tour here. And yeah, you can see things on the outside here. And on the upper level of this building, we can get an overview of everything.
Oh, everything.
We can get into the boat here.
And there is also a lake.
There's also a lake to walk around, yeah.
Wow.
And you should see where everything
Seems
is here.
to be interesting. We got here the Gibb and Hog tank engine. Wow, that's amazing that they are able to preserve this. Andrew Barclay steam hammer. So this steam hammer is a small representation of a Conde steam hammer, which was commonly used in local malleable ironworks. And then
Got to hold it? Yeah.
so what we have here is the Victoria Iron and Steel Works rolling mill. And this is a pig bed. So let's read this. Oh, this is quite harsh. If the man made a poor quality or quantity of iron, they would have been paid very little and even evicted from their homes. Oh, that's harsh. That's not nice.
Cast iron.
Carbon.
If you add carbon and other things, you can get
Steel.
If you add chromium, you also get stainless steel.
Oh, wow.
So that one there is interesting. You record that. That describes it. Yeah, you melt iron ore with limestone and oxygen to get iron.
This one here is we got this. So these are the Stewarts and Lloyd's steel pipe samples. And the model ingot molds. And what is this?
This is a machine used to test the strength of steel. So they would stretch the steel here. They would stretch it until it broke. And how much pressure was needed to break the steel indicated how strong the steel was.
Oh,
So
yeah, a tensile testing machine.
So they record the force to break it, and that force indicates the quality of the steel. The higher the force, the higher the quality of steel.
Oh.
So these are
Vacuum
examples
cleaner.
of all the things they made. The compasses, measuring instruments, tools, all variety of tools.
It's number 13. Oh, so this is the cylinder vacuum cleaner, created in the year 1939. And we have here,
That
what is
just
this man
drills holes into a metal plate.
Hmm?
So you might need that, for example, to hold two pieces of steel together. You need a hole and then a big bolt, a big nut and bolt to hold them together.
To hold them together. We also have here the plate bending rolls. And then what else do we have here? These are the planing machine, and then shaping machine and slotting machine. Yeah, slotting machine. Some other products. Pieces and machines. Oh wow!
This
Chessboard.
chess set was made by workers in a factory during their lunchtime, and they used nuts and bolts. They used nuts and bolts to make the pieces.
Here's another machine called Spade Forge, and this one's, what is this? Laundries and casting machines. And then the brass finisher lathe, radial drill, and we also have here a milling machine and the Trumpelier gate. And this one is the Coventry Climax fire pump and monitor. Very interesting. Sugar pan, confit pan, and mixer. Yeah. So this is the confit pan and the mixer. Cardovan winding engine.
That's for it hauled men and coal up and down the mine shaft.
Cinema seats, and this is the projector in the cinema. Western Electric Cinema projector.
From around 1930?
Yeah, 1930.
Oh, that's 1947.
Oh, yeah, 1947. Wow.
So, see the reel where they put the film reel up there?
Yeah.
I think that's where the reel goes.
Pieces of material on the table over the machine and were clamped down with T-bolts so that they couldn't move when the machine was doing the cutting.
When they were making the boilers, what they would do is punch holes along whatever side of the plate was going to get riveted. They would offer the plate into the bending holes, and depending on the diameter, they would take the hole so they could get the plate back out, and then they took it away further.
Some of these men started as apprentices and worked right through to the retire, and then retired at 65.
This place is just so amazing, Beshies. And this is the boiler making. Coal hutch, built in 1930s. Welcome to the first floor, where we can see the exhibit. Viewing pavilion, conference room, and exhibitions. Wow.
The technical drawing, that's what it is.
Technical drawing. The drawing office, and we have here the pattern making books. Wow. And look at that handwriting, the handwriting. So this book is the only part of the SUMMERLEE Iron Company's achieved that is known to survive. It contains specifications and drawings for equipment for the ironworks and the company's coal and ironstone mines. And what do we have here? We have the colliery fan and engine design. This tracing shows a gable fan for ventilating a coal mine from the surface. Scale tracing and blueprint of a boiler of 1948. And we have here the steam gears 1 and hunters. So we got here the SUMMERLEE Iron Works. We are at the
the hoist used to transport the
viewing
raw
pavilion
materials
just
to the
now.
tops of the furnaces.
So this is the SUMMERLEE Museum Beshies, the building. Old train.
It's a bit disrepair, but
Yeah.
please turn me to the resting place.
Drilling and
All kinds of things, turning, sanding, polishing, grinding.
What do we have here?
For drying timber.
Yeah, timber drying shed.
So you can see here.
Structural materials.
The woven wall on the right there. We know all about that in Philippines.
Yeah.
This is interesting. So you've got different
Logs, woods.
Yew wood, cherry wood, ash wood.
Wow. Cherry wood, yew wood, box, also box. That's ash. And that's elm, oak, cherry
oak, and yew.
yew. And there is also a barrel. Planes, moldings, joints. And the tools of the trade. Crosscut saw. Local woodlands. Woodworks, like carpentry. This one. These wheels are made of wood.
Must have been hardened in that one.
Yeah.
We make our way around, and we should come to a little up the
wheels.
pulley. It's a pulley system, which would, with long cables, that would pull up the, what do you call them, the trowels of coal. Like a living room. Look, the
1980s
yeah,
living room.
recreated a living room. Yeah.
Wow. Oh.
Even with the TV shows that were going on there
Yeah.
and the video games.
Yeah. And they
More
also
fun, right?
have their. They also have the old newspaper. Oh, what is that, Sony? Is that a VHS?
Betamax.
Yeah,
It's
Betamax VHS
yeah,
component.
VHS. Well, they go through all the TV shows. Doctor Who.
Yeah. This is year 1960.
1960s.
1960s.
Television was only just created in the late 50s.
Yeah. Oh.
Pineapple slices, 8 ounce, shilling. Eaten soups. Only a shilling. Bachelor's packet soups, only 10.
It's their kitchen.
Marmalade, £1, only 1.9, and many more bargains.
And this is now the 1940s living room. Oh, wow. So there was no TV yet at that time.
Just the radio.
And
You've got to look at each item.
what is this?
It's the gramophone.
That's a gramophone. Gramophone?
Gramophone.
Gramophone.
Yeah, like a record player.
Wow.
Got to look at each thing. There's a set of dominoes
Dominoes.
there. That's the radio set, or the wireless they called it. The wireless. The tea set.
Tea set.
Then you've got the fireplace.
Fireplace.
Mantelpiece clock. And the grandfather clock in the corner.
Grandfather clock.
And then an old vacuum cleaner there.
Yeah, that's the
Trench
old vacuum
coat.
cleaner.
Trench coat. And there's some toys like a wooden railway train over there. Children would play with toys.
A washroom from the 1880s. Wow. Oh. It's like they are reenacting the conversation of the women at that time while they are doing some work here. 19th century.
1870, 1880.
1880s again.
Now, have you ever seen? So look, they slept here.
Yeah.
They slept here.
And
Basic.
it's a
It's all
baby.
basic, you know. And the old-fashioned fireplace where you have to stoke the coals. And they also use that whole thing for cooking as well.
Yeah, and look at that broomstick. Oh my God, I've only seen that in movies. Like in those witch movies. Yeah.
But look how they've got all that in one place. That's like the kitchen.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the fireplace. Imagine the smoke from the baby lying there.
Yeah.
Not that much
1910s.
different. It's not that much different. It's a little bit. I've got some more furniture in the room. A bit more furniture.
Just for a wee second or two, Jerry's going to come in and close the door, so it'll be pitch black just to try and let our eyes adjust just for the first wee 30 seconds or so, and then the torches will be on for the rest of the tour, okay?
Alright, there you go.
The most common types of mine. So going back about 170, 180 years ago, there were well over 250 of these mines dotted all throughout the land, so they were actually very common. A lot of the land around here was farmland, so farmers working their field would sometimes turn up little bits of coal and they would realise there could be a coal seam underneath the ground, so they would start to employ family groups, so men, women and children, to start digging their way in just to see if there was enough coal underground to make it feasible to dig a mine out. If they were, they would just start digging on the angle that we've got here today at the side of a hill, and they would start off quite simply by putting up railway sleepers, these big planks of wood at the sides. They're on the roof above our head as well, and that would hold back any loose earth and dip. But when the miners started to dig further and further under the ground, they came across hard rock and coal, so they then had to start using explosives to blast their way through that and create the rest of the mine. But on the way down, they would also start adding these heavier timber props just for a little bit of extra support. These timber props, you can see they do run right throughout the mine. They will get lower as we head down, and when we get to the very bottom, we're going to turn a wee tunnel left. The timber props get as low as about 5 feet just along that little tunnel, so you just watch your head when we're getting through that wee tunnel. This area of the mine though, where I'm shining my torch down there, that was called the lie of the mine. The lie was designed very specifically to be the lowest point in here, and that was for one reason: flooding. Flooding was one of the biggest problems that the miners had in drift mines. Anytime we get heavy rain, you can see the gap underneath the door up there, the water does still just run in here, and it will run down and it will gather at the lowest point. Down there at the lowest point, that's why we had a steam driven water pump, and that would have been in constant operation 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, pumping as much of that water out as possible just so that the mine didn't flood. The wee pipes that are just above your head there, guys, they would have brought the steam down to operate the water pump, and then the larger ones behind me would hopefully have pumped as much of the water back out as possible. You've got to remember, we've made this tunnel a good bit larger to help you guys walk through it. In reality, the kind of wee handrail at the side there, that would have been the height of the tunnel. They were only about 3 feet high, so miners were quite often on their hands and knees crawling. So you can imagine the kind of weather we get here in Scotland in a 3 feet high tunnel. The rain could fill up very, very quickly. And the way we've come in would be the only entrance and exit to this mine. So if that area filled with water, the miners then working maybe a mile away at the coalface would have been in real danger of getting trapped. So it was always really important that area was kept as dry as possible. On the right hand side there, you'll see a few of these on our walk through the mine are the wooden coal hutches. These were what obviously the miners used to bring the coal out of the mines, but these were the kids' jobs. Kids in our area as young as 5 years old were brought into the mines by their parents, and their first job would be to pull the coal hutches from the lie to the coalface, where their parents would then fill them up with coal. Whenever they were full, they weighed nearly half a tonne, so about the same weight as a small car nowadays. So you maybe need 3 or 4 kids at a time trying to pull one all the way back to the entrance here. So it was a really hard start into mining life for the children. But it was really important they were doing the job, because in a few years' time they would be expected to take over for their parents, because the miners had really short lives. They would have retired probably by about 35, 40. So really important that the kids were down early so that they could learn the job. So we're going to have a wee wander down. As I say, we'll head down to the left and we'll show you a few wee rooms and we'll see how the miners were working. So everybody okay to carry on just now? This was a method of mining called stoop and room mining. Now basically all that means is first thing in the morning these guys would come down just exactly like we have today. They would dig themselves into these large rooms, and they were just using their pickaxe like this miner is here, just trying to dig some of the coal out from the wall. Now, the problem with them trying to dig some of the coal out of the wall is that if they took too much away from the wall, there was always a chance that the roof could collapse in on top of the miners. So, unfortunately, it meant at this point in time, the miners were only able to safely dig about 50% of the coal out. They had to leave the rest down here, and kind of these, like there's a kind of large stoop or pillar beside me and one beside you, yourself at that side, and they would also have to leave a few of them inside the room as well to support the roof. At this point in time, these miners were getting paid depending on how much coal they managed to take out during their shift. So if they're leaving 50% of the coal down here, it meant they weren't getting paid very much money. So in order to make a decent wage at this point in time, these miners were working under the ground for about 12 to 14 hours a day, 6 days a week at this point in time. Lucky if they got a Sunday off to spend some time with their family. And the majority of that time, that 12, 14 hours was spent under the ground. They didn't get back out to the surface really for anything. We've obviously not walked too far from the entrance, but this wee room could have been anywhere up to a mile away. So if they wanted to walk the mile back to the surface, it was just a waste of time. They weren't getting paid any money. So eating their lunch, going to the toilet, unfortunately all of that was done down here inside the coal mine as well. Going to the toilet was just a case of digging a hole in a room that they'd finished working in, covering it up with some rock and rubble after they'd finished. And we're talking maybe 20 or 30 men, women and children doing that day after day. The miners said it was a bit like working in a sewer, very dirty, very smelly, a lot of disease. Even simply whenever they're having their lunch, they would bring down their bottle of water with them in the morning, and quite often it would just be maybe a sandwich that they'd bring down with them in a container to eat for lunch. But you'd see how filthy and dirty their hands were, nowhere to wash their hands. So at lunchtime they would take the sandwich out, be very careful to hold on to one little part of it, eat down to that. That was then too dirty, so they would fling that away in the ground, and leaving all the food about and all the sewage. That also attracted rats into these coal mines as well. Rats were a huge problem in our area. The miners just had to get used to dealing with them. The one thing they could do, this miner's done it just underneath his knee here. This came from the farming communities, where they would tie a little bit of string just beneath their knee joint, and that would tighten their trouser leg up, and that was basically just to stop the rats from crawling up their trousers and having a bite at them during the day as well. So the conditions at this point in time were pretty terrible. They weren't making very much money, and their working conditions were really poor. So they were always looking for some more efficient ways of doing their job. So this was around about 1840.
I see trees so green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself,